What happens inside a mind where empathy collapses completely, where human life becomes nothing more than disposable waste? How does a person cross that final threshold, the one that separates darkness in thought from darkness in action? This is not just a story about murder. It's about the terrifying machinery of a mind stripped of connection, stripped of meaning, operating in cold, mechanical silence. Robert Pickton, a pig farmer from British Columbia, Canada, didn't just kill. He transformed his farm into a factory of disappearance. For years, women vanished into the void of that property, swallowed by isolation, silence, and something even more insidious, a process of systematic dehumanization. The noise of slaughter masked the absence of screams. The routine of butchering animals became the background for something far more grotesque, the erasure of human lives as if they were byproducts, no different from the waste he discarded every day. Have you ever wondered what truly drives a mind like this? Stay with me. The truths we are about to uncover go deeper than you might expect. Because what happened on that farm wasn't just hidden in barns and mud. It was hidden in the folds of a psyche capable of severing the very concept of humanity. To begin understanding how such a transformation unfolds, we first need to confront the place itself, a landscape built for silence, both physical and psychological. The Pickton farm wasn't just land, it was a boundary between what society sees and what it chooses not to see, between noise and silence, between life and something disturbingly less than death. This wasn't rage, it wasn't impulsive violence, it was routine, a chilling, methodical process where the slaughter of animals and the disposal of humans blended into one seamless, horrifying rhythm. The environment itself became a psychological cocoon, isolating not just the victims, but Pickton's own capacity for empathy. When the ordinary sounds of butchering pigs drown out the cries of human suffering, when flesh becomes flesh, indistinguishable by species, something irreversible happens to the mind behind it, and it leads us to a confronting question. Does understanding a mind like this bring us closer to preventing such acts? Or does it only pull us deeper into the mystery of how far the human psyche can fracture? I would truly love to hear your view. Share your reflection in the comments. Your perspective is part of this exploration. If this kind of deep psychological inquiry resonates with you, check if you're already subscribed to Criminal Psychology Unmasked. Here we don't seek easy answers. We explore the hidden mechanisms of the criminal mind to better understand what most prefer not to face. Because to begin unraveling how someone like Pickton transforms dissociation into a lifestyle, we must first step inside the psychological architecture of dehumanization itself, where thought disconnects from feeling and where routine replaces remorse. Now let's go even deeper into this unsettling transformation, from man to mechanism. Understanding Robert Pickton demands that we stop seeing him through the lens of ordinary criminality. His journey into psychological collapse wasn't sudden. It was a gradual erosion of empathy, a progressive shift in perception where human beings became nothing more than disposable objects. Reports from those who knew him in his early years describe a man who was socially withdrawn, emotionally vacant, and often perceived as intellectually limited. But beneath that awkward simplicity was the early architecture of something far more fractured. Former employees at the Pickton farm spoke during the trial about his disturbing behaviors long before the first confirmed disappearance. They described how he often laughed while slaughtering pigs, sometimes prolonging the process unnecessarily, as if testing his own relationship with suffering. One worker recalled Pickton casually saying, "It's all the same meat," a phrase that would later echo with chilling significance. This wasn't a man who snapped. It was someone who methodically recalibrated his identity from individual to operator of a system where life and death blurred. His mental framework evolved into one of ritualized dissociation. Investigators found that after killing his victims, he often processed the remains using the same equipment designed for animal carcasses. This wasn't just about hiding evidence. It reflected a complete collapse of the boundary between the human and the inhuman in his mind. The complexity of this mind doesn't end here. What truly demands analysis is how this internal dissociation became sustainable for so long, hidden in plain sight, masked by the mundanity of farm life. If this analysis sparked something inside you, leave in the comments. There's always a hidden layer. But there's another hidden layer we need to uncover: the ritual itself. The way Robert Pickton carried out his crimes wasn't chaotic nor impulsive. It followed a disturbingly consistent pattern, one that reveals how far his mind had traveled into the realm of dehumanization. This wasn't just murder. It was a process, a mechanical dismantling of identity designed not only to end life, but to erase any trace that a person ever existed. Court records revealed that victims were often lured with promises of safety: food, shelter, money. Once on the farm, the transition from person to object was almost immediate. Witness testimonies described how Pickton referred to his victims in purely functional terms, calling them bait or garbage in private conversations. During interrogation, when asked about one of the missing women, he responded coldly, "She's gone, just gone. No name, no acknowledgement of personhood, just absence." The psychological mechanism behind this runs deeper than simple sadism. It reflects a complete cognitive compartmentalization, the ability to mentally separate the act from the meaning. This allowed Pickton to operate his farm by day and commit unspeakable acts by night, with no apparent disruption to his routine identity. Investigators discovered that after each murder, certain rituals were followed. The bodies were processed using meat grinders, their remains either fed to pigs or disposed of in rendering facilities. The cold efficiency of this method wasn't just for concealment, it mirrored the psychological collapse within him, the total reduction of life to matter, of existence to waste. The journey into this mind forces us to confront an unsettling truth. When the meaning of life collapses in someone's perception, the impact radiates far beyond the act itself. It contaminates the very framework of identity and reality. The complexity of this transformation doesn't end here. To truly understand the psychological mechanics behind Robert Pickton's actions, we need to examine how his mind fractured, how his functional self coexisted with his predatory self, often in plain sight. This wasn't a mind consumed by chaos. It was a mind operating under a chilling form of moral disengagement, where empathy wasn't simply absent, it was manually shut off whenever needed. The very environment he lived in became an unconscious training ground for this dissociation. The slaughterhouse wasn't just a backdrop, it was an active participant in conditioning a mentality where life was reduced to flesh, bone, and waste. For years, Robert's daily routine involved killing animals, draining them of life, cleaning the remains, and moving on without a second thought. Over time, that line, the one separating the slaughter of pigs from the murder of humans, became thinner until it simply disappeared. During his trial, a former acquaintance testified that Pickton once joked, "I'm just a butcher, but not always with pigs." Delivered with a grin, it was a statement dismissed as a dark joke by those who heard it then. But in hindsight, it revealed the terrifying merger of his identities. The functional farmer and the predator no longer lived in separate mental rooms. They overlapped, coexisted, and eventually became indistinguishable. This cognitive split allowed him to interact casually with neighbors, attend community events, and maintain business operations, all while continuing his hidden rituals. Behind the mundane exterior was a mind capable of toggling between identities, turning empathy off like a switch whenever it threatened to interfere with his objectives. And this ability, this terrifying mastery of selective detachment, became the engine driving the hidden reality of the Pickton farm. Now, as we peel back yet another layer, we're faced with one of the most unsettling aspects of this psychological journey: how Robert Pickton maintained a mask of superficial normalcy while harboring a reality of unimaginable horror beneath. His social interactions were clumsy, often marked by awkwardness and limited verbal communication, but they were just functional enough to sustain an identity that blended into his surroundings. To those who encountered him in town, local vendors, farm suppliers, even police officers in passing, Pickton was perceived as eccentric, perhaps odd, but never dangerous. Testimonies from neighbors during the trial revealed a man who frequently hosted late-night parties on his farm, gatherings that attracted members of society's margins, sex workers, addicts, and transient individuals. Many attendees reported that he was quiet, almost passive in his demeanor, often slipping into the background, watching rather than participating. This passive posture wasn't just social awkwardness. It was part of his camouflage, a psychological defense mechanism designed to lower suspicion, to normalize his presence in spaces where few would ask questions. And yet, in private moments, fragments of the abyss leaked through. One witness recalled Pickton casually commenting, "I'm getting pretty good at making things disappear." It was framed as a joke. But now, in hindsight, those words reverberate with chilling clarity, not a confession, but an accidental revelation of the distorted identity behind the mask. The most haunting question remains whether Pickton himself perceived this duality as monstrous, or whether, in his fractured perception, these acts had simply become an extension of his routine. Was there cognitive dissonance, any internal conflict at all? Or had the boundaries of morality, identity, and reality already eroded beyond recognition? The truth hidden behind that mask forces us to question not only him, but the fragile nature of the masks we all wear, but the mental architecture that allowed Robert Pickton to sustain this dual existence was never truly indestructible. Over time, the cracks began to show, subtle at first, then increasingly visible, until the carefully constructed boundaries between his identities could no longer hold. Whether it was arrogance, fatigue, or the inevitable erosion of dissociation stretched beyond its limits, the mask began to slip. In 2002, a routine weapons search turned into a revelation of horrors no one was prepared to confront. Inside the property, investigators stumbled upon personal belongings of missing women, items that should never have been there if the mental separation between predator and citizen had remained intact. There's a haunting moment during the trial where prosecutors highlighted a statement Pickton casually made to an undercover officer placed in his cell. Bragging, almost boastful, he said, "I was going to do one more, make it an even 50, then quit." Whether this was bravado, self-delusion, or a glimpse into the deteriorating boundaries of his own perception, it signals a profound collapse of the mental mechanisms that had protected him from himself for so long. Neighbors had begun noticing strange activity, the persistent foul smell, the constant arrival and disappearance of visitors, and equipment running late into the night. Complaints had been dismissed for years, seen as nuisances rather than warnings. But as the psychological walls fractured, mistakes became inevitable. Items that should have been destroyed were left in plain sight. Sloppy decisions replaced ritual. It's a common pattern in prolonged dissociative offenders. The mind, unable to sustain the cognitive dissonance indefinitely, begins to betray itself. The collapse wasn't just external. It was the unraveling of a fragmented identity, a final breakdown where even silence could no longer protect the truth hidden within the farm's decaying walls. The echoes of what unfolded inside the Pickton farm linger far beyond the crime scene, far beyond the courtroom. They force us into a confrontation with something most would rather never face: the fragility of the human mind when stripped of empathy, when routine replaces morality, and when the architecture of conscience collapses entirely. The transformation Robert Pickton underwent wasn't a sudden descent into madness. It was a gradual corrosion, a step-by-step dismantling of the psychological mechanisms that tether most of us to compassion, to boundaries, to the recognition of others as human. During the trial, one of the most chilling moments came not from graphic descriptions of the crimes themselves, but from Pickton's own words, caught on a police recording. He stated, "It's easy once you start. It just gets easier." That single sentence encapsulates the terrifying psychology of normalization, how the unthinkable can become habitual when the mind permits it. The impact of this case stretches beyond the victims, beyond the perpetrator. It exposes the truth hidden in the shadows of perception, that under certain conditions, the boundaries between person and object, between empathy and indifference, can dissolve. The farm was not just a crime scene. It was a physical manifestation of a psyche where meaning itself had decayed. And yet, the most disturbing revelation may not be about Robert Pickton alone. It may be about us, about the uncomfortable truth that the mind's capacity to fracture, to compartmentalize, and to justify lives closer to the surface than we care to admit. Is this truly an aberration, or does it mirror something deeper? Something innate, something we prefer to keep buried within the unspoken bastions of human nature? Does understanding their mind bring us closer to preventing such acts, or only deeper into the mystery? I would love to hear your view. If exploring the hidden architecture of the criminal mind resonates with you, consider subscribing to Criminal Psychology Unmasked. This is a space where we don't sensationalize, we question, we analyze, and we go beyond the surface. And if this reflection sparked something inside you, right below, there's always a deeper origin. Your perspective matters more than you realize. It's part of what keeps this exploration alive. A like on this video isn't just support for this channel. It helps bring visibility to serious psychological investigations like this. Ones that don't chase easy narratives, but instead confront the uncomfortable truths hidden within human behavior. Because as much as we've uncovered today, one truth remains. Every act we analyze here is just the surface of a much deeper story. To truly understand this mind, we need to trace the invisible paths that led here. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the next chapter. I'll be waiting for you in the next video.